Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Gill, and I'm the Director of Global Product Marketing. And we have with us today Uzah Chinedu. He's from Leadway Pensure, and he'll talk about how he uses Zerto Virtual Replication to protect Microsoft SQL Server. Before I move on from the first slide, one quick housekeeping item. If you would like to ask questions, we encourage you to do so. We'll take them throughout the webinar. And you can type them into the questions panel that, for me, popped up on the right-hand side of my screen. So you can go ahead and take a look there, type in your question, and if we don't take it during the webinar, we will take it at the end of the webinar. So I'm going to introduce Uzah in just a minute. We'll go through his background and what he does at Leadway Pensure. He'll tell us a little bit about his organization, the environment overview, the challenges he saw with BCDR, the purchase process, and then why Zerto. And then back over to me, and I'll go through Zerto Virtual Replication, and we'll tell you how to learn more. So Uzah is the infrastructure manager at Leadway Pensure. He has over 10 years of IT experience. You can see he has certifications from Microsoft and VMware. So he's responsible for the disaster recovery plan for his entire organization. It needs to make sure that applications and data are available to end users, and is responsible for managing and maintaining critical applications such as SQL Server, and they have many custom financial applications as well that are critical to their business. So at this point, Uzah, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Uzah Chinedu. I'm in charge of infrastructure for Leadway Pensure PFA. It's a pension fund administration company born out of 4 companies that emerged together to form this great company. Leadway Pensure was established in 2005, and we started off with a few servers back then, and today we've grown to having over 100 visual servers. Next slide. Now, like I said earlier, we started with a few physical servers. I remember back then, most of our servers were 32-bit machines, but as applications grew, there was a need to get more enhanced servers. So we had physical servers, and when our data center became maxed out, we resorted to virtualization. So currently we are 95% virtualized. We have 2 data centers. Our production is at Ikwari in Surulere, and our recovery site is located at Maryland. We have a lot of applications, but our core applications are SQL Server. We have applications running on Linux. We have applications running on Java. We have file servers on Windows machines and all that. Now, our SQL Server actually is where our core information is being stored in our database. As of today, this happens to be the biggest VMs amongst all our VMs. It's actually a 2 terabyte VM, and most critical machine for us. In terms of storage, we are using cross platforms. We have storage from HP and also storage from the EMC. For the physical servers, we've used different generations, and each one presents more compute resources for our virtualized environment. We have a fully redundant system to avoid failures in our business. And the link between our production and Jaro sites, back then we started with the 5 meg, and after testing we found out that that the 12 meg link will be adequate for our business. Next slide. Now, I was given the mandate to get a recovery site and have a BC process running. Now, that was a tough one for me because I had so many vendors offering solutions, and we needed to pick what was really adequate or suit our business need. Now, for the biggest challenge I faced was replicating this SQL Server machine, because the machine was a big one, and we needed a solution that could actually replicate data as data is being generated at the production site. We didn't want any data lag in between. So we sought out a solution that could meet our needs. Now, one other part of what we're looking at in choosing a solution was the availability of testing our data that's being replicated to the DRO site without having any impact on our production site. So I pulled out some applications, some vendors, and began my testing. Next slide. Now, I started off with DoubleTake. DoubleTake was installed on a Windows machine on the production and the DRO sites. The setup was quite easy. To just click next, 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 and all that. Doing the initial replication went on fine, no issues. But we had trouble when it came to doing a failback to our production site. I realized that we could not fail back to the same infrastructure we already had at the production site. Failing back means you have to start replication all over. So the data, your primary data you left behind, you cannot go back to use the same data. And that to us was a no-go, because it increased the time of our recovery using the solution. And after that, I tested SRM. After the setup, we found out that SRM couldn't replicate our SQL machine that had VMs, that had VMDKs in 4 different data stores. It was a real big challenge for us, because we wanted that same order to be replicated to the recovery site. This was just a no-go area for SRM. SRM just couldn't replicate the different VMDKs for us. Now, a colleague, a friend, recommended Zerto. Now, I've almost given up on getting a solution when Zerto was actually brought to my knowledge. So I requested for a POC, which I remember the engineer I worked, I think his name was Joshua. He agreed to give me a POC, and my time frame was I needed to get a solution working and present by Monday. And we had this conversation like on Friday, so we agreed that we'll do the setup on a Sunday. Now, everything took like an hour. The installation, everything was very easy, and we started replication. We're now replicating data from our production site to our DRO site. And before my eyes, I saw RPO that I've never seen before. Seconds, sometimes minutes. Now, this was the real trigger for me. I was really happy that I could do this entire setup on the weekend, and I was already replicating. The changes that were happening on the production site were immediately being replicated to the recovery site. And there's this part of Zerto that I really loved the most. You can do a test failover. Replication will still run at the background, and you can actually power on your machines at the recovery site and test. This was a big plus for my management, and it gave us the confidence that yes, Zerto could really deliver, and the replication solution will sought after. Now, the engineer looked at the applications we're replicating, and to my surprise, Zerto had a best practice guide for our SQL Server applications, which we went through in doing our real setup for production replication, and everything was working fine for us. The joy that brought to me was still something I find difficult to explain to people, because I went through a lot trying to get a solution that could work and meet our business need. And Zerto just did everything in one box. Everything we needed about replication, Zerto had. And I coined Zerto as a miracle for BC and DRO, because really it was a miracle for us after the long search and hard work of getting a solution. Next slide. Now, there are best practices for us. This was we came across this during our testing phase, because initially we started with the 5 meg link, and as we threw more VMs to be replicated to our DRO site, we realized there was also a need to increase the bandwidth. So we tested and we finally settled for a 12 meg link. Now, we had infrastructure at the DRO sites. The drives were actually 10K drives. We had some for 7.2K drives. And Zerto recommended that to really get utmost performance out of our infrastructure, 15K drives would just push our application to the extreme. And we changed our drives to 15K drives. All our VMs that we replicate currently have RPOs of seconds as at today. We started off with a 15 license pack, and right now presentation is before management to increase our licensing, because yes, with Zerto we've been able to protect our machines. So we want to protect more. We've actually gotten more infrastructure for our recovery sites. So we are trying to procure more licenses to add and replicate more of our production VMs. Next slide. Now, why Zerto? During the testing phase, there were features or there were abilities we were looking for in our application solution. The biggest to us was having RPOs of seconds. That was achievable with Zerto. It's just like magic, you know. As data is being entered on the production side, those data are also migrated, replicated to the recovery side. So we have RPO of seconds. That works very well for us. It has allowed us to meet our compliance level with our regulators. Now, the installation was easy. Everything was done in within 1 hour. We had everything set up. Now, we have a compliance regulation of doing our DRO test twice in a year, and this is really not a difficult task anymore, because I could be on my seat and sometimes I just play around and I run test replications, as in I run test failovers, and my machine starts on the production site and everything just goes on fine. Currently, I have a setup where machines that perform the same functions, like I have application and database servers in the order which they have different orders in which they are to start. I can actually configure my power on of those machines at the recovery site to start one after the other in the order I have set them to come up. This was a feature that the other solutions I even tested, they couldn't really pull through. Now, another factor we were looking at was reporting and alerts. And Zerto has beautiful reports. We get alerts when ROPO and RTO are not achieved. If there are any lags in the system, we get email alerts, email triggers. So this gives me the confidence that yes, this is a solution that really works. There are no surprises. I know everything that's going on just by looking at my tablet and getting emails and getting reports. There is a feature with Zerto called journaling. That feature enables us to roll back our replicated data to any point in time. This feature is a big sell, because among the application solutions I tested, none of them actually had this. This is a big sell. So I can actually power on my replicated machine and go back as far as 4 hours to see the state of my machine as at that time. You know, this is a winning point for us, and with this, we can fix issues that occur even in our production site that were replicated to our DRO site. We can go back, we can roll back and sort out challenges. Now, another thing I like about Zerto is the support staff, the team. Zerto has a great team. I've been using Zerto for some time, and they actually meet the agreed SLA. If I have a support issue and I send an email for support request, I get my response immediately, and the engineers, they don't rest until my issues are resolved. That to me gives me the confidence that yes, this is a solution that we really need in our organization, and it's something that has actually helped us achieve compliance with our regulators, and our business is happy with it. Next slide.
So great, Uzah, thank you so much. A couple questions came in, so one for me. So someone asked, are we recording this session, and where can I find it afterwards? And the answer is yes, we are recording it. And if you go to the resources page on Zerto.com, you will see it posted there by, I'll say by the end of the week. Usually it's a little earlier, but definitely by the end of the week. And then, Uzah, this is a question for you. How did you deal with application consistency for the SQL Server databases?
Now, Zerto Replication works with real-time replication of data. Data inputted on the production side is immediately replicated to the DRO. So that consistency there, the consistency is in check. As data is being written on production, that data goes to a recovery site. In sync, we have good sync, and that enables consistency to be in check.
Great. And then someone's asking if you enabled the VSS writer service on the server?
We didn't really need that feature. We didn't enable it. We tested that during the testing phase, and as for our production, we didn't enable it, and we're still replicating. Everything is fine as it is.
Okay, and here's a question, Shannon, I think it's for you. So now all of you will know we have a surprise guest. So Shannon Snowden's our Senior Technical Marketing Architect. So, so it talks about Zerto needing the recommended VMDKs to be in one data store as well, unless I understood it wrong. Just,
I'll look at the question.
Yeah,
so
Uzah mentioned, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, so a couple of points on the VSS. Zerto does support the VSS on the VMs if you set it up. So if you have it configured, then what happens is at the end of the VSS quiesce, then we will get a application consistent checkpoint. Let's see. Zerto, looking at the question here, so I'm kind of reading and talking at the same time, but we're not, so this is talking, the question is about the VMDKs being on a single data store or not. And so if you look at it from a Zerto perspective, we're at the VMDK level, and we're not really concerned about what data store it's actually on at the source or the target. So you can map to the target site to faster storage or to whatever storage you have there, and you can do it per virtual disk per VM. So we're very granular, and we give you a lot of options as far as how you get the VMDKs over to the target site, plus where you want them to exist. And you can even split them up to multiple tiers of storage at the target site. When you do the failover, it's very, very fast, so we have very low RTOs because you've already got the VMDKs placed on the data store in the actual configuration of our virtual protection groups, of which Jen will talk about here shortly.
That is true.
Okay.
Uzah, do you have anything to add to that answer?
Okay, yes. For us, our production sites, we had a VM with 4 VMDKs in 4 different data stores. We wanted to replicate that 4 different VMDKs onto a single data store at the recovery site. Amongst the whole solution we tested, Zerto was the only one that could do that. SRM couldn't do that. With SRM, you can't replicate from 4 different VMDKs to 1 at the recovery site. It has to be 4 to 4. You can't do 4 to 1. Zerto was the only solution that could do that.
Okay, great. So that's all the questions I see so far, but again, we will take them throughout the webinar. So I'd like to introduce Zerto Virtual Replication. So it's a virtual aware solution. So what do I mean by that? I mean that, as Shannon mentioned in Uzah, we replicate VMs and VMDKs. We don't care about the underlying storage. It's software only, so it's not dependent on any hardware infrastructure. And because it's software only, that gives us 2 things: seamless scalability, as well as the ability to not have any hardware dependencies whatsoever. Tier 1 enterprise class, so we look at very aggressive service levels. Some customers or prospects, it's funny, they come back to me and say, well, we only have 20 VMs. We have customers protecting 20 VMs up to thousands of VMs. So when we talk about enterprise class, we're not talking about the size of your environment or the organization, but really the level of service that we enable you to deliver to your business. And we have automated replication and recovery. So this is really important. When you're in the middle of a disaster, as I'm sure many of you have been, when you pull out your 300-page disaster recovery process, that's not the time to be running through all those steps. So with Zerto, we automate those processes for you. So it's just a couple of clicks, and then you can fail over and have everything up and running on your disaster recovery site. So we'll run through a simple overview of the architecture. I say simple because here we have 2 sites, and Zerto is able to support multiple sites. So we have the Zerto Virtual Manager that plugs into vCenter Server. On each ESX host within the environment, we install a Zerto Virtual Replication appliance. Again, the scalability that I mentioned a little earlier. I want to stress that they're an appliance versus an agent. They don't require ongoing care and feeding individual attention. The Zerto Virtual Manager will take care of updates and upgrades for you. Again, the Zerto Virtual Manager is the only piece of software that you'll touch. So you can see you can replicate from anything to anything. So Pure, IBM, Nutanix, Nimble, EMC, Dell, HP, whoever you're using for storage, it doesn't matter. And in fact, some of our customers are able to reuse older hardware in their environment so they can extend the useful life of their investment and get a better return on investment for those older assets. Highly scalable, we talked about that already. It's a continuous block level replication. So we replicate the I/O as it's being created within the host before it gets sent over to the storage layer. So because of that near synchronous replication, we're able to deliver RPOs of seconds. As Uzah mentioned, in his environment, they're seeing seconds for their recovery point objectives. So the journal, Uzah mentioned this as well, so it's kind of a history of what's happening within your environment. So it could be 4 hours up to 5 days worth of historical information. You'll have a point every couple of seconds. Really useful to recover from logical upgrades, logical issues and upgrades if those do cause an issue. I did have a customer who performed an upgrade, and it did cause a little crankiness with their application. They did that at, say, 4 o'clock. They just rolled it back to 3:59 and 52 seconds and undid the upgrade, and then they were able to continue and then do some troubleshooting and see what might have been the cause there. And we also do some bandwidth optimization, compression, throttling, things like that, because although disaster recovery is very important for your environment, as it is your production environment, you never want to impede the productivity of your end users. So we have some things that you can put in our, configure in our solution to make sure that DR is not dominating the environment. So the virtual protection group, so this is a group of virtual machines that make up an application, and Zerto protects those as one unit. So say you have SharePoint, SQL, ERP, whatever it is, you can take all those virtual machines and put them together in one group and ensure that they're protected consistently across the environment. Within this group is how you'll set up your protection policies. So things like, do you need to re-IP, the service level will be set consistently, and what the journal should be. This also helps you take advantage of some of the other features within VMware. For example, if you're using array-based replication, you can't always use storage vMotion and things like that because the array-based replication is not aware of the moves and changes in the environment. With Zerto and the virtual protection group, the virtual replication appliances communicate to one another and just say, hey, that VM that was part of this virtual protection group, it was on server A, now it's over here on server B. So automation, one of our customers used to call his disaster recovery plan the hit by the bus book. It was over 300 pages, and with Zerto he was able to get it down to 11 pages, and it's mostly screenshots. So with that, all the data, as you saw, gets sent to the other side, and it's waiting there to get built. So we don't have shadow VMs on the target site, but the information is there ready to be built when you need to fail over. So you click the arrow, Zerto automatically starts building the virtual machines with boot order. So if you want the database server up and running before the application server, and then the web server, re-IPing if you need to have a new IP address once you go to your DR site. So that all happens automatically. The click to test anytime, so when you configure your virtual protection group, you'll be able to put in a re-IP for production failover and a re-IP for test failover. So if you have a test network or a bubble network or QA environment within your IT infrastructure, you just put that in for your disaster recovery test. Click to test anytime, completely non-disruptive. During the test, replication is still happening. There is no exposure there. And if you have a disaster in the middle of a test, you can stop the test and then do your real production failover. It's completely not impacting your production environment. And then we have an offsite cloning feature. So if you want to make a copy of your application to use for backups, test, and development, now you're able to give people or groups the latest copy of the application, how it looked an hour ago for test dev versus how it looked a week ago. So Zerto Offsite Backup, this increases the usefulness of your already replicated data. So many of you probably have a DR solution in place and then a backup solution in place. Rather than having duplicate infrastructures, Zerto saw an opportunity. So we thought, gee, we already have the data at the recovery site. Maybe we can take a backup from that already replicated data. So you can send this locally to that recovery site. It can go to a third site. It can also be sent to Amazon. We support S3 storage. The information can be stored in Amazon. It cannot be run there, but you can store it there. And what that gives you is the ability to always recover. Say you have, maybe your DR site's not far apart, and you have a catastrophic event. Now, if you have that third site, you'll always be able to recover. And because we do take a copy, we take a backup from the replicated data, it really reduces the impacts on production applications. When you think about those snapshots and the overhead that they put on your ESX host, it dramatically reduces that overhead because it essentially takes it away. Simple management from anywhere, so you can see we're a plugin right into vCenter Server, or there's a browser-based version, so you can get to it at any time. And there you can see kind of the buttons in the lower right-hand corner to fail over. So that's what you would click if you wanted to fail over. So multi-site replication and migration, so we talked about that a little earlier. So you can replicate from several sites into one shared infrastructure. It's truly multi-tenant solution. It's natively multi-tenant. You can also replicate between different versions of VMware vSphere. So I know that when you're upgrading VMware vSphere, you don't instantaneously upgrade all your sites at one time. And again, with other DR solutions, that can then break replication because they have to have the exact same configuration on production and disaster recovery sites. With Zerto, that's not the case. We can tolerate the different versions, so you can move the upgrade along at your own pace without being exposed. Bidirectional replication, so we have many customers who have half production in one site, half in the other, so when they do have to fail over, it's just a 50% failover rather than the entire site. You can replicate from anywhere to anywhere, so you can have sites that are 5 miles apart. And we also have customers replicating from Texas to Dubai, from Waltham, Massachusetts, which is in the Boston area, to London, So we can tolerate, replication from between any two sites in the world, basically. And we also support single vCenter. So if you have a smaller site that maybe is geographically separate from a data center, but within the same vCenter server, maybe to save a little bit on those licensing costs, Zerto can tolerate replication from that smaller site into the main data center. And then, of course, we work with many, many cloud providers if you wanted to investigate disaster recovery as a service. Uzah mentioned the comprehensive report, so there are many different types of reports we have within Zerto Virtual Replication. The audit report, so this is the one that's kind of front and center on the right-hand side. You can see a column that's in green, that's a success. So once you run a disaster recovery test, this would be the output from that test. So then you can see each step within the process, how long it took to execute, and then was it success or was there a failure? So this is great for auditors. Many of you may have requirements that you have to have a disaster recovery plan in place, and you have to prove that it works. This report would show that. We also have detailed resource planning, so you have consumption of resources on the source and target site. You can look at performance charts, and then you can also look at a backup report. So this is a report that tells you, did the backup execute? Did it, what VPGs are backed up, etc. So before we had a complex manual replication process, so you have to look at, this is an example if you're doing SRM with like a storage replication. So you have to look at all the steps within the virtualization team. You have to locate the VRMs. Sorry, I was doing CRM and VM together. You have to locate all the VMs, get them mapped to the same data store, make sure that data store is on the correct one, and then document all the properties, ensure that there will be no changes made within the environment, and then this is kind of ongoing management and maintenance. So this is a very complex, manual, and inflexible process. Any changes made in terms of the architecture need to be updated in your BCDR plan. That's not an automatic process. With Zerto, we take many of those steps away, and now the storage team and the virtualization team do still need to work together. But what they do is the storage team just says, hey, you need this much space, here it is. The VMware team then takes the VMs, puts them in virtual protection groups as they would like, configure the BCDR policies, boot order, re-IPing, IP addresses for disaster recovery tests. You can also put reminders in the VPG to say, hey, you need to test this application every 6 months for the DR plan, etc. And then that's it. Many of our customers, and I'm sure Uzah can comment on this once we start taking a few more questions, you kind of just go in, check the interface every morning, and then that's it. It doesn't need that ongoing management and maintenance. So, truly virtual-aware solution, again, for good service levels, RPOs of seconds, RTOs of minutes. We protect at the application layer. It's scalable and very simple. So you heard Uzah talked about the installation in 1 hour. One of the most common comments I hear from our customers, because I run a reference program, which is how I get to meet great people like Uzah, they say the simplicity is just mind-blowing. It can't be this easy. And it really is. And I would encourage you, if you're interested, to try a proof of concept. We do proof of concepts at no charge. You can try out the software for, I believe it's 2 weeks, install it in your environment, and most of our customers just flip it from a test installation to a production installation, and that's it. So really, really easy to install and try. And then before I get to questions, so if you'd like to speak with Uzah directly, certainly I can help you do that, but here is his email. If you have any questions for myself, I'm happy to take them as well. And then Shannon Snowden, our surprise guest, who you already spoken with, Shannon can help you with any of those super technical questions also. And I saw that we got some new questions. All right. Let me just pull up the little interface. Okay. So here, Uzah, this is a question for you.
Okay.
You mentioned that you do test your disaster recovery plan twice per year. Did you do a live failover, like a production failover test, or did you use the testing failover feature within Zerto?
We actually did a live failover test with our production data.
Okay, so it wasn't the testing feature within Zerto?
The testing feature within Zerto, we use that for testing, but compliance regulation demands we do live test of our production data twice a year, which we successfully carry out every year.
Okay, and then, I think you can answer this question. It says, if you do not have vSphere Enterprise Plus in DR, i.e. no DRS, can you pick the host that a VM is hosted by in a failover?
Yes, we can. You can pick that. There's a lot of flexibility in Zerto, and I think it's easier explained if you get your hands on it. Yes, you can pick any host.
Okay, great. And then someone asked, oh, is the offsite storage encrypted? I think they're speaking in regards to Amazon Web Services. And I am not sure. Shannon,
well,
is the off? Go ahead.
Well, for offsite backups, the target data store is not a data store; it's actually an SMB share. So the SMB share could be deduplicated, encrypted, whatever is happening on the server side, because it presents just an SMB share to the Zerto Virtual Manager, which runs the Zerto Backup appliance that allows the offsite backup to happen. So it's really your call how you want that storage to be configured.
Okay. Yep, okay, that person just responded, yes, they did mean in terms of AWS. So great, thank you for letting us know. Here's a question. I thought Uzah, you answered it privately, but I think that everyone might like to know if it's possible. So is your replication taking place over a VPN or via a dedicated point-to-point?
Okay, our setup is over a dedicated point-to-point. I remember we started with 5 meg and ended up with a 12 meg link.
Okay, great. And someone was asking questions about Zerto specifically. So is it privately held, and can I share the number of customers? So we are approaching over 1,000 customers. We are currently privately held. We do have some larger customers. If you go to our website and click on the Customers tab, you'll see a quote there from Uzah. You'll also see quotes there from Mitsubishi, Fujitsu, Voya, which was ING, and then I think there's 30 or so quotes there. So if you'd like to go there and check it out, there are many, many customer quotes that you can look at, as well as case studies. Okay. Lots of questions on the VSS plugin, but Uzah, you already mentioned that you are not using it, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay. Okay, I see a question there asking if systems are integrated into each other. I'll say yes to that. There is a feature called VPGs where you can actually put systems you want to be together in a VPG, and you replicate them across your recovery sites. And machines can be bound together in a group and replicated.
Okay, Uzah, it looks like a follow-up to that is how is the data consistency?
We've not had any issue, we've not had any experience of having challenges with that. Everything has worked so far so good at our recovery sites whenever we carry out our tests.
Yeah, and that's the nature of the virtual protection group. As Jen mentioned, there is right order fidelity between the virtual machines and that virtual protection group. So what Uzah was able to do, and you'd be able to do, is put the virtual machines in whatever boot order you want them to have, and then you can read IP address, whatever you'd like. But if they're in a virtual protection group, that means there's an association between the VMs as far as right order fidelity. So if I pick one of the 5-day point times previous to restore from, each of those VMs are going to come back at that point in time, consistent with each other, and boot in the correct order, of which I've already done the the non-disruptive testing to figure out how they boot, how long it takes to get them to boot. You may have to throw a script in there for the cranky services Jen mentioned, and you get all that worked out. But the key there is the right order of fidelity between the virtual machines in a virtual protection group.
Okay, great. So I have a question here. Shannon, I think it's for you, and it's based on our work with healthcare partners. I think it's very relevant. So someone said, I work in healthcare, and HIPAA business associate agreements are required to protect personal health information. One of our VMs, including our Exchange server, that could potentially contain PHI in an email.
So we have many customers in the healthcare sector, as Jim was mentioning on the number of customers we have. If you look at some of the verticals that we support, they are healthcare and they're financial, such as banks, trading companies, and things. So those regulations, and this specific one is HIPAA, those organizations are able to meet those regulations using their infrastructure mechanisms that they have in place, such as role-based access, the security monitoring, audits, and alerts. And Zerto is very low impact to the environment. When you install it, it works with the environment as it was installed infrastructure-wise. And then from a replication standpoint, so if you think about meeting a requirement from source to target, what we're simply doing is replicating it and orchestrating a recovery in an environment that has been configured to meet those requirements.
Okay, great. Uzah, I think this one's for you. So how does the SQL Server 2014 instances participating in always-on availability groups and are being replicated using Zerto? So is there how does that interaction, I think, is what they want to know.
Because for us, we have our SQL Server machine in a VPG, and when we do our tests, the production side actually goes down, and the DRO side or the recovery side comes up, and all the instances remain on as they come on the recovery side. Because our own infrastructure setup is quite simple, just production sites with the SQL Server there and recovering sites with the SQL Server being replicated over there. So if it goes off on the production site, it comes on the recovery site with all the instances.
Okay, great. So that's actually all the questions so far, but I'll give people a chance to type in a few more by just, again, plugging our proof of concept. So again, we're happy to do a proof of concept with you. It is at no charge. A sales engineer will sit with you and walk you through the installation, which, as Uzah mentioned, will take about an hour. So it's about 30 minutes to install the software, and then there's about 30 minutes of knowledge transfer. They'll help you set up a VPG or two, and then you'll see that start to replicate.
On the SQL Server configuration, we have some best practice guides as well to assist you with getting the configuration that you want, depending on if you're using always-on or active-passive sort of configurations of SQL clusters here. So we have that guidance information available.
Okay, great. And no one snuck in the question, so Uzah, thank you so much. Oh, someone did. See, as soon as I say it, they come in. If we have a Windows SQL Failover cluster configured, how would you use Zerto to replicate that to the DR site?
That really doesn't apply in our case because we don't have a cluster configured at our own end. Maybe Shannon can throw more light into that.
Okay.
Yeah, an active-passive, we would support that. Active-active, we really don't support that.
Yeah, it's active-passive.
Right.
Okay, so Zerto would support that, Shannon?
Yes.
Okay. Someone asked us to provide the guide, so we'll have one of our sales team members follow up with you on that. Yes, So anyone who's asking for the SQL Server documents for Zerto, so we do have a case study and a data sheet on our website. But if you're looking for the technical documents, so we provide this registration list to our inside sales team, and they'll follow up with you, and they can provide that documentation for review. Okay, great. All right, Uzah, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. People want to hear from you. They don't really want to hear from me. I love your energy and enthusiasm about the product.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.